must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. Your hosts are Patrick and Catherine Andrews.
Join us each week as we explore a wide range of metaphysical topics such as dreams, astrology, intuitive readings, and life purpose. You'll receive practical guidance so that you can live your most awesome life.
Learn more about what we do at intuitiveschool.com and connect with us on Facebook at Spirit's Journey Radio. Welcome to Spirit's Journey. We are coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception, and being simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. You can also find us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. We are here in the Heartland holding the energy for spiritual truth and awareness. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Catherine. Welcome, everyone.
And we're very excited to have our good friend Teresa Padilla back to talk to us about what we need to eat during the spring. So welcome, Teresa.
It's wonderful to be here and celebrate the spring equinox with you both.
I know, it seems like we just had you here for fall to talk about what to do for fall, and now I can't believe how time has flown.
Yes, definitely.
Well, spring has definitely sprung, so we need to know what we need to eat and also what we may need to avoid during this season.
I am definitely a cheerer on that one. Do you want to go right into it and want to spring right into it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's just spring on in unless you have something, Catherine.
Well, and it's important because I know a lot of people are getting colds right now. I just did a lecture last week and a lot of the ladies were ill and they said, oh, yeah, at the change of season, I get sick. It's not so much in February, but it's the change of season. So I think it's really important that we go over this information so that we don't get sick this spring.
Yeah, I've been focusing on 5 elements and learning about that and studying it and teaching it for quite some time now. And the balance of that is really the trick. And when we have too much of excess in one season or one organ or one energy field or the other, then things start cropping up. So right now, the liver is the main organ that we want to feature and that's highlighted right now in spring. And when you have like colds and what you're talking about, like a little bit of that transitional, they call illness or seasonal allergies, a lot of people will say,
Yes.
What that is excess. It's excess. And we have in our environment right now a lot of excess of rain. Have you noticed that here in the Midwest?
Oh, yes, I have. And you were just saying it was flooding where you are up in Omaha.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there is a lot of excess of you could relate rain and water to yang. And a lot of chi, a lot of energy.
And yang, just for the listeners, can you describe what that means?
In terms of yin and yang, it's aggressive and receptive, and a balance between that. So when water is yin, but too much of it is yang or excess. So we have both extremes with that right now here in the Midwest, and so that can affect how we move into a season as well, our outer environment. And that our inner environment you want to regulate the different balance with the foods that you eat and the things that you put in your body. We spend so much time eating and drinking that when we watch the foods that we eat and what goes into our body, then we have a lot of ease with the balance. We really do have a lot of control that we can have with ourselves and with the balance in our lives.
And so with, you mentioned the liver being the important organ right now to focus on. And just to bring in a little mind-body stuff, I usually, and feel this myself, the liver relates to repression. Like if we've been repressing anger or anything, it has to process that. Like if we think of the liver processes toxic foods, is there something that, relates to that, saying, well, the liver processes toxic thoughts like anger and things like that?
Right. Yeah. The liver, you in spring, what you want to do is you want to rise with air and ease and lightness. Rise up to the heavens with very, light sprouting energy. And anger comes about when we have too much excess in our liver. And so what can help ease that is a lot of foods will help ease that energy to kind of calm down and reduce a little bit. And pungent foods will help ease the liver. So oats are pungent, chamomile, there's a lot of herbs that are pungent. Chamomile, ginger, onions, spring onions, adding cooked onions to your diet, really good. And cooked greens, really good to help ease the function of the liver. And if you notice right now, a lot of people with the, they want to spring into activity when spring comes. And so they're racing around, cars are driving really fast. So you can very quickly go from 0 to 100 in a matter of 2 seconds in spring because it's so light. The energy is so light and it's easy to do that. So you really have to watch and regulate that within yourself to not overstimulate yourself with too much activity, too much emotion. So you want to kind of calm yourself as much as you can, not suppress, but that a little bit of a balance of calming.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I know. You see the car windows down, radios blasting. People, kids are. We do part-time teaching, and the kids in schools are already getting anxious, like out of control behavior. So would stimulants like caffeine and energy drinks be something we should avoid right now?
Yeah, it's not really necessary to have those right now because the energy is conducive in spring to have to support that rising energy. So you don't really need the energy drinks unless you have a lot, some stagnation going on. And if you have stagnation going on, then you might have some symptoms of that are things with your nails. You might have some stuff go on with your blood. And so that would be symbols of stagnation, or depression is another symptom associated with stagnation. So things that you can do, like one of the functions of the liver is to support the blood and to produce and store blood. So you want to eat some bitter foods. Bitter teas, there's a lot of licorice root teas, a lot of root teas. Celery root is really good to eat, and celery, all those help to support the root and help to support the blood and store the function of the blood, which helps to ease that stagnation.
Yeah, I know the bitter is really good for digestion, and unfortunately, like so many Americans in our diet, doesn't really have a lot of bitter foods. So we're kind of
coffee.
Yeah, people do like their coffee, but apart from that, there's not a lot of choice, in the American diet or in restaurants that have those bitter foods that people are actually willing to eat. Now, I've trained myself to like the greens and some of the more bitter foods, but a lot of people they don't like them.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, one thing I was going to ask about is that a lot of people in this country drink coffee, and I remember something about it's better to drink coffee during the winter, but what about during the spring? What effect does that have to continue drinking coffee through the spring and summer?
Well, it's kind of the same thing that we were talking about just a second ago, where it can overstimulate the energy system. And it can also, coffee is very dehydrating. And coffee is a bean, so it is related also to not only the nervous system with the liver, it can stimulate that, but it also can drain the kidneys and dehydrate the kidneys. So one of the things that feeds the liver is water. And, you think in terms of life cycles for the 5 elements. So water feeds wood, and we have wood as the main element here in spring. And then the wood sprouts up in new tiny growth and rises to the heavens or to the fire. And then the fire falls down in ashes to the earth and nourishes the earth. And then the earth kind of compacts and leaves deposits into the metal, producing metal deposits. And then the metal then draws water to it for aquifers, and then the cycle starts all over again. So that's how you want to think in terms of your growth and in terms of cycle and cycles. So you want to nourish the root in order to aid the smooth ease flow of the liver. And a lot of coffee, if you notice, makes you kind of jittery. Some people are so used to it, it has the opposite effect, on them, because they're actually draining because of too much coffee. So yeah, you just kind of want to watch that. I like coffee, so I drink coffee year round now, but I watch that and have less this time of year.
One thing I started doing, because I did notice that the coffee started dehydrating me, that when I would work places and they would have that 24-hour coffee just going all the time, unlimited coffee flowing. And I just found myself, before I knew it, by the end of the day, I'd had like 5 or 6 cups of coffee during the day. So I noticed that I started getting really thirsty. And then I started hearing that coffee dehydrates you because it's a diuretic. So it actually opens up the channels to release water from the body. So what I started doing was to alternate a glass of water for every coffee cup that I had. So I'd drink a cup of coffee, then I'd make sure that I drank a glass of water, then I'd have a cup of coffee, and just alternate. I found that really helped out. So is that something that people could use that could help them out with that?
Definitely. I try to drink green tea in the morning with some kind of root, like licorice root in it, and have that first thing in the morning with a little bit of warm green tea with a little bit of honey in it to help stimulate the chi in the morning in a soft, nurturing way. And that helps to nourish you right away. And it also helps to, moisturize you, have kind of softness with it. And then I have my cup of coffee.
Now, where can people get licorice root, for example? Because I just wrote it down. I thought that's a neat idea. I'm going to add it to my tea. So,
well, actually, there are a lot of teas now. If you go to like a whole healthy market that have licorice root in them. And it's really in abundance right now. I've seen a lot of teas. If you go into they're more related to women's teas. So if you go into the women tea blends, you'll often find licorice root in it.
Amazing.
In some form or the other.
And I thought that was such a beautiful description you gave of the cycle of the water, nourishing the wood and then the fire. And I thought, boy, that's a new take on the little water cycle we teach in elementary school,
Right.
It's so much more in depth and has so much more soul and spirit in it than our just very physical description we give kids, rains, it evaporates, it comes down,
That would be wonderful to add that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was wanting to follow up. You mentioned something about one of the symptoms that you can watch for if you're having trouble is the nails. And you also mentioned the blood, but I think it might be tougher for people to know that they're having blood problems, but the nails are very visible. So what kinds of things would they look for in the nails that might show they're having some trouble there?
Rigid nails, little grooves in the nails. I used to have quite a bit of things with my nails. Some of that is dehydration, and some of it is associated with the nails, yellow nails, inflamed, where they're kind of, they protrude outward. All those things, there's kind of a combination of things that can be going on. Inflammation can be going on, and so therefore that means there's too much heat in the liver. And so you want to reduce that heat. And greens are a wonderful way. Green tea, watercress is wonderful during this time of year because it's bitter. So it's going to help encourage that proper blood storage. And then also it's cooling. So it's going to help reduce the inflammation that's prone in the liver this time of year as we get heated up and move around. And then it's also green, so it'll nourish and nurture the function of the liver. And it just helps, and it just really helps you feel really good. So a little bit of watercress goes a long ways now.
And how do you prepare the watercress?
I usually add it to almost anything that I cook this time of year, like with any kind of rice, or, when you want to have a lot of good sprouting rices right now, cooked rice with a variety of different vegetables. But always have some cooked greens in there and add some watercress in there.
So how does that come? Is that easy to find? Does it come in the produce section fresh, or do you get it in cans? How do you find that?
Fresh produce, yeah.
Oh, so fresh produce. But I think I've seen watercress in water in a can also. Is that good to use sometimes?
I like to do fresh this time of year.
Okay, so as long as you can get it fresh, it fresh if you can.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good.
So I was just thinking, I love sauerkraut. Would that be considered bitter food?
Oh, it's pungent and sour. And the flavor, good to bring that up, the flavor of the associated with this time of year is sour. So you do want some sour. That's also going to help reduce it's going to aid your digestion. That's why sauerkraut is really good with your digestion. And it's good to have a little bit of that, but you don't want too much sour foods during this time because the liver is in its operating, has a lot of function right now. So you don't want to have too much sour, but a little bit, yeah, wonderful. And add a little bit of, it's, the St. Patty's Day when they have it such appropriate time because it's right before spring. And it's kind of interesting how some holidays really are associated with the foods that are associated with those holidays are associated with the seasons that are going on. That's what's actually taking place in the season is what you should eat. So what do we have for St. Patty's Day? Usually we have traditionally sauerkraut, cabbage, potatoes, and then meats that are in there. And all of those things really help support going into spring. So they nourish the blood, they nourish the digestion, and they help kind of warm the chi because it's getting ready to rise and nurture yourself coming out of winter. So that's right what's happening at that time.
So the Irish knew something
they knew something.
Interesting.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So do you think that was because of the foods that were maybe available at the time is why they used that? Or is that something that maybe there was a little bit more of a philosophy behind it?
I don't know the history all behind that, but what I do know is with the foods, have come up with what was available true in our environment, and what our environment produces traditionally was in harmony with the seasons. Now we kind of have a whole different protocol because we've decided to adjust, some of the seasons, the life cycle with our own maneuvering of what we want to plant and how we want to plant it and stuff like that. And so what is happening is a whole nother life cycle that's taking place that's designed by us. And that's going to be interesting to see how we harmonize with that. Now, I know what I've learned from years of resonating with the seasons is that you need to learn how to harmonize with them. Because nature kind of trumps, Mother Nature trumps what's going on. We can't really control Mother Nature, but we can harmonize with Mother Nature. And when we choose to do that, then things start flowing in our lives. Things start opening up, and then the cycles can function on their own. Now, what we've kind of done as humans like to do is we've added our own control. And so we've kind of muddied up the life cycles. And so there's all different kinds of cycles going on with Mother Nature right now. And it's a little bit more tricky to harmonize these days with all that. That's that's why I think it's so important to what you guys are doing with your show and the preventative wellness things that everybody's teaching right now. I think all of that is so important right now because there is an unprecedented, I think, cycle that's taking place because of our, having to get in there and take control of things from all different angles. And so we have the new generation has all this bombardment really taking place that they need to learn how to adjust to. So it's very important to have a really be strong in all of these organ systems and all the cycles.
Well, and I think one of the biggest shameful things we've done, against Mother Nature to screw up the cycles has been the polluting with Roundup, which has glyphosate. So just have to add that we just had another historic win. There was a case, a man just, he wasn't a big organization. It was just, he said that he used Roundup around his garden for years, and now he has lymphoma, or non-Hodgkin's disease. I'm sorry, non-Hodgkin's cancer. So he went up against the big company, Bayer, that bought out Monsanto, and just based on the science alone, he won the case that said, yes, the product does cause cancer. So unfortunately, now that's another win. There's about 11,000 cases behind his against Monsanto. So, it's everywhere. They're saying it's even in the rainwater. Of course, now they're finding glyphosate in the foods we eat. It's just everywhere. So I think one of the things we, have to face is, okay, like you were saying, Teresa, this bombardment on this generation, how are they going to clean up all this glyphosate that's been sprayed for years and years on the land?
Well, I really believe that's something that we all need to take a good lesson from, because I feel like it's important for each of us to really take the initiative to find out more about all of these things that we're eating, because Monsanto, and now Bayer has bought out Monsanto. They for a long time they've been pushing genetically modified organisms, for example. You see them as GMOs, and so far legally they are not required to disclose GMO foods when they include them as ingredients in other foods. And I feel like whether or not a particular product is GMO needs to be disclosed, just like when we had all of those nutritional label requirements passed in the 70s. I think that's really no different, because, like Monsanto, they're creating strains that the plants actually produce their own insecticide to resist the different insects. And so they're claiming, oh yeah, it's going to be this incredibly high yield. Well, what good does the yield do if we're actually poisoning ourselves? So we need to be aware of what's in that. And also, I'm definitely in favor of pushing for much stronger testing before they release any of those products out into the public.
Oh, well, of course. And, the way around it is just buy foods that are actually labeled non-GMO. I mean, they figured a way around it. So now I won't buy any product that has corn unless it says non-GMO. And so what everyone's going to do, hopefully, is just look for the products that are already labeled non-GMO. So we've kind of beat them at their game. So anything that's not labeled, is probably GMO. And I personally don't want to buy it.
I think that's one way to go. We just need to make sure that people are not able to put non-GMO if it does not, in fact, have, there may be people try to label things non-GMO when it actually has GMO, or they don't really know what's in it. So we just need to make sure that maybe there's a trusted agency or, nonprofit or somebody that we can trust who's actually investigating these foods that are labeled non-GMO to make sure they really are.
Yeah, well, since that it's a toxin, Teresa, and we're talking about the liver, again, we just go back to, we have the power to deal with these toxic things.
Exactly. I think the number one thing that that I can hear that we're talking about is awareness. We can't really not be aware anymore. We're kind of at the energetic level as a planet. and as a human race that we need to be aware. We need to be aware of what goes in our bodies. We need to be aware of what's going on in the world, what's going on with our, not in conjunction, in association with our neighbors, not necessarily with the neighbors. And so, and then grow up with that, educate ourselves and help educate others, and then show up by being responsible, by accepting our responsibility, and then radiating what we can do through our being and our presence and through our essence and our energy to really help and support and nurture what we have.
That's awesome, Teresa. I love that. And again, the healthier we eat, the better we feel, the clearer our minds, and the more able we are to do the deep critical thinking and be aware. Because when we have brain fog and we don't feel good,
right,
we're zoned out. We can't even think.
Yes. And there's so many, this goes right into the helping us to support what goes into our bodies and the foods that we eat. I mean, that helps to aid with that.
All right. Well, we are getting ready to go into our break. We are approaching the bottom of the hour. So during the break, we invite you to go to the Spirits Journey page on tfrlive.com, and there you may choose to elect to support the station and our show. There is a link there where you can actually become a member of TFR. And Truth Frequency Radio is a member-supported station, so their operation entirely depends on the generosity of people just like you. And so 50% of your contribution goes to the station, and 50% helps us continue on with our show. So until we see you on the other side, this is Spirit's Journey on Truth Frequency Radio and Oneness Talk Radio. See you on the other side.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR, your protection from deception.
Welcome back from the break. This is Spirit's Journey coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio, being simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. We are here today with our good friend Teresa Padilla. We're talking about spring and the foods that we can eat in the spring. It's called seasonal food, so it's eating right for the time of year.
So, Teresa, I have to tell you, you gave me a cleanse several years ago that has totally changed my life. It's the liver cleanse. I'm going to have you share it with people because I've been doing it religiously for, I think, the last 4 or 5 years, and it has made such a difference in my energy level. I love it. So you want to share what that is?
Love to. The thing to keep in mind with this spring cleanse is that you want to do it when the weather warms up a little bit, wherever you are. If you're in the other part of the world where it's already warm, then go for it. But I would wait just a little bit to start doing it. And you want to have 7 days in which you can devote to doing this. So if you're traveling, you might choose another time frame for it. But basically, what you want to have is some unfiltered apple juice or juice some fresh apple, juice from some fresh apples, and spring water, olive oil, cayenne pepper, powdered ginger, and a lemon wedge. And then you're going to also have maple syrup as well. So in the very beginning, for 6 days, you want to drink this recipe upon arising, when you spring up in the morning. And so it's 1 full glass, and you add a half to 3/4 will be of the unfiltered apple juice. And then you add equal parts of spring water, and then 1 teaspoon of olive oil, a dash of cayenne pepper, and a dash of powdered ginger, and then a squeeze of a lemon from a lemon wedge. and mix all that up and drink it, and it really is very tasty, you know.
It is. I mean, I look forward to that drink in the morning when I do the cleanse.
Yeah, it makes you feel very good. And the thing that is important to know too is that cleanses really are effective when you have enough supporting energy to really release toxins and release things. So it's not so good to do cleanses in wintertime because you're nourishing and nurturing and supporting your energy in the winter, and you're kind of honing the internal organ energy. So when things are rising and you have movement, that's when you want to cleanse. You know, when the rivers can cleanse themselves when they're moving, but when they're not moving and they're still, they're not going to be very, they can't cleanse themselves. So cleanses are effective in springtime. That's the best time to do them. You don't really want to do them any other time of year. They're not that beneficial. So to do this first thing in the morning, you want to drink that recipe, and then on the 7th day, what you want to add to the recipe, and you drink it at that time is at 11 p.m. at night, is add a tablespoon of olive oil instead of 1 teaspoon of olive oil, and then also add 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup. And that's just going to pull everything out and kind of sink it and just make you feel just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much more energy when I do that cleanse. And it's interesting because, the times are specific. Like you have to do this drink in the morning, and then you said on the 7th day at 11 p.m. So what is it with the Chinese system and the times of the day, and how does that relate to anything?
Well, the morning is springtime. Just like you have cycles in the seasons, you also have cycles in a day. And so the morning is spring, and that's why you want to drink it first thing in the morning. Also, that's when your toxins are going to be starting to be released in the body anyway, so you want to be in harmony with that. And also in every Chinese system, whether it's feng shui, whether it's martial arts, whether it's food therapy, you have an opening and a closing. They're very traditional with that. And it's very important to honor that, I have found, because that kind of sets up a boundary and a honing for your energy and essence, your yin and your yang. So you'll have the closing for this recipe, and this cleanse is in the evening. And that helps kind of sync everything as you're going to bed that night. You've cleansed the toxins, you've out of your system, and now you're putting that really good maple syrup in there and that extra olive oil to kind of it nurtures and supports the liver at that time as you're going to sleep for the evening. And so that's that opening and closing.
So now is also the gallbladder paired with the liver? Don't they kind of work in tandem?
They do. There's an inner and outer organ for every organ system. And the gallbladder is kind of like the controller. The liver is the planner. So traditionally, how you harmonize with those two organ systems is you want to plan. One way that you can do that is you want to plan. You want to develop new ideas. You want to sprout new ideas and new seeds with the liver in springtime. And then the general or the gallbladder, you want to help regulate those plans and create like a smooth transition and harmony with that. Now, some of us can get into over-regulation, over
what would that
control,
look like?
Kind of like what we have with a lot of our systems that are going on in the government and so forth, so there's a little bit too much of the gallbladder energy with those. And so what you see is this feminine energy rising up, and that's kind of a natural balance that needs to take place in order for essence to create a balance. And the feminine power is essence. And that's going to help balance out all that over control with the gallbladder energy that we've created.
And don't you find too that a lot of times the outer control is a result of the person feeling a lack of inner control and disconnect. And so they put they want to control outwardly because they don't have any inward understanding of themselves. And
yes, definitely. And one thing that I've been learning about recently is in terms of developing my own feminine essence, is that my power has to be kind of rooted or grounded in more my womb or my pelvic region. Now, men or masculine energy, their power is rooted in the heart, like puffing out the feathers, with the peacock, and the lion that roars with the heart and the breast, first. And so that's their energy comes forward from there, in their power. And the female energy and their power comes from their root and from mothering and from their womb. So it's the sinking energy, and the male or masculine is the rising energy. So to help harmonize with that, you want to own your own power first and foremost and come from that place. So I really try, before I initiate any kind of action, is I endeavor to ground myself, to root myself, and to, as I'm walking around, I think in terms of, walking from my center of my pelvic, region. And so that I'm grounded. I think right now I'm talking from that place. And that just helps to kind of settle your whole energy field. And it also helps others be supported, because they can come in with their energy and they'll just naturally come to you. It creates harmony.
We have a question coming in from the TFR chat room from Rebecca, and she's asking regarding the liver cleanse. If you drink alcohol, would it be dangerous to do the liver cleanse, or would it be beneficial to do that?
It's definitely beneficial to do it because that does produce toxins, as we know, in the liver and the kidneys. And I have found a lot of people that will do that. Now, it's not necessarily recommended to, that's not the natural balance of things, is to go ahead and, okay, I'm going to be okay if I drink and then I'll do this cleanse, because it kind of zero each other out over the long run if you keep doing that. So, I partake in alcohol from time to time, so I think it's, everything is good in moderation is kind of the goal here, and with balance.
So in the Chinese food medicine philosophy, how much alcohol would be considered acceptable that your body could handle processing?
It really depends on your own constitution and what's going on with you. And I think that you need to monitor that yourself. I mean, for the most part, myself, one drink, that's plenty for me. And, 1 or 2 times a week is plenty for me. Now, because it's so dehydrating on my body, the more that you really balance your energy field and your essence, then as you add things that don't create harmony, then it's very noticeable, more noticeable than it was before for yourself. And so you find, maybe you don't need as much of the vices, so you need a little bit of the vice. And so you kind of reduce that a little bit.
Well, I remember back when I was in college, my friends would invite me out to a party, and, we'd go to parties more regularly. So I remember I could drink quite a bit more
right.
and seemed to handle it fine. But now, I had a friend over and we just had a little bit of beer while we were watching a movie. And after one beer, I was feeling some effects from it. So, back when I was in college, I would have been called a lightweight, but
right.
it's probably because my body has adjusted to not really needing it. The threshold's kind of lowered, but I did notice I was dehydrated afterwards. I was thirsty. So I drank a glass of water after I had that.
Yeah, there could be a couple things going on, not necessarily with you, but, as teenagers, you can seem to just do whatever to your body, and it's just going to spring up no matter what, But as you grow older, what happens sometimes and oftentimes is there's a natural settling. And if you aren't in harmony with that and you're not really taking care of yourself, then what happens is you can have stagnation. And the stagnation, then you can't really abuse yourself, as much, because it starts multiplying.
Right.
Yeah.
So just finishing up that question about the liver cleanse. So when somebody's doing the liver cleanse for the 7 days, would it be recommended to stop drinking any alcohol at all while you're on the cleanse?
Yeah, I think it would be very beneficial to not take in as less toxins as you possibly can during that time, so that you can get the really full benefit of the cleanse.
And 7 days goes by pretty fast.
Yeah.
We just did it. It was like a week or two ago, and we were doing that final one before we knew it. I was like, wow, has it been 7 days already? So you kind of get into it, and then it flows. And then, so you could probably, if you're curious if you can do without your alcohol or whatever, it goes by pretty fast.
You're going to feel so good on the cleanse. You won't need anything else. And Teresa has this really cool site called 5 Element Foodies. I just love the title that you chose for that. So what is it? And are you going to post the cleanse there?
Yeah, I can do that. It's on Facebook right now. And it's a place to chat. It's a place where I post tips and on seasonal recipes, seasonal exercises to help support your organ systems and your life, the life cycles. And it's a place for other people to kind of bring forth questions and anything that they want to bring forth at that time related to that.
Awesome. And we do have a little bit of time. We wanted to open up the phone lines for the last part of the show here. So if you wanted to call in, you could call in at 213-233-3998. And if you're in the UK, you can call in at 44-203-393-2871. So if that went by a little too fast for you, you can also log in to the front page of tfrlive.com, and the calling numbers are there for you as well. So if you want to call in to ask Teresa some questions, feel free to do so now.
So, all this talk, Teresa, I love talking about the 5 elements, the Chinese theory, because it reminds me that they actually have an organizing theory for understanding the human body and health and how we relate to nature. And I remind people that in the Western system of medicine, there's no organizing theory that they use to be able to explain how the body works. It's all disjointed, and now they've gotten into, all these specialties. So the gastroenterologist only deals with that part of the body, doesn't see it connected to anything else, which is absolutely ridiculous because we know the whole body is connected, and the Chinese have such a wonderful way of understanding that connection. One of the great ways, of course, is they know that we're energy, and we have these energy meridians that connect. And with acupuncture, those meridians can be opened up. And I, just had an amazing acupuncture treatment and wondered what would you have to say to people in terms of, acupuncture, and is spring a good time to get acupuncture to help with all this, cleansing in the liver and so forth?
Yeah, I think any time is a good time to get acupuncture, actually, because there's so many things that go on with acupuncture that aid your organ and your system. You can use that science and that just very ancient science to aid yourself and to really build or release excess, nourish, and support your whole body and whole system with somebody who who knows what they're doing with that.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. If you get a good acupuncturist that knows the points, it feels good. And that, plus I was doing the liver cleanse, so I was like on a high, let me tell you.
So if somebody wanted to start studying this and getting into it on their own, this would be kind of like a beginner level text. Is there a good book that you would recommend for someone as a place to get started learning about this philosophy and how they can incorporate it into their life?
There are so many, there's a lot of good things on the internet that I can say. Straight Bamboo is a very good site that has a lot of information. Alex is the guy that he was out of Flagstaff and he was over in China before that, and now he lives in the United States in Flagstaff, Arizona. And he's got a lot of wonderful things on that site. So I highly encourage going to that. And do your own research. There's what you want to look for is 5 elements that work together on that site. And I think a good site will have exercises for you, will have foods and herbs for you to help for preventative wellness. Of course, we have that on 5 Element Foodies as well. And if you ever want any kind of consulting, I'm always available for education for that. And you can contact me on 5 Element Foodies.
Awesome. So the main place for them to contact you then is through 5 Element Foodies on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
So speaking of exercises and stuff that we can do, are there any mind-body exercises that will help us ease into the spring?
Meditation is always a good exercise that I think is, for me, kind of a way of life to implement in my lifestyle. But if you haven't ever done it before, or you would like to add to that, I think this is a good time to start doing it, is in spring, because you want to calm the liver and you want to have that centeredness, as you go about in your day. So having consistency with a style of meditation is really good. So one thing that you could do right now, I can lead an exercise right now.
Sure.
Just for a minute, is get yourself in just a sitting position. And have your spine straight, your feet flat on the floor in front of you. And kind of relax your breath and ground your feet. And imagine light coming from the center of the earth, supporting into the center of your soles of your feet and rising up through the body and going out throughout the whole body. And now center yourself in the center of your pelvic region, and imagine a light expanding from there. And now connect that light with the center of your heart and expand a globe of light from there. Not too wide, but just enough. And now imagine connect with the center of the point in your head, the center of your head, and expand your light from there. And now from this grounding center point, expand your light, and this is your boundary, your energy, and your essence. And within this, you can listen and be still and be silent and nurture and nourish your essence and your energy. So that's a very quick, we don't have a lot of time right now to do that, but you can stay within that state for 15 minutes during the day, and it just helps it helps promote you and nourish you and nurture you.
I got really relaxed there. We should have put the disclaimer, don't do this if you're driving.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, if you're driving or operating heavy machinery, please make sure that you are safe. So that goes hopefully without saying for everybody out there. So make sure that you are in a good position to do any kind of meditation exercise.
Yes.
And what about, I know yoga is a more Eastern tradition, but yoga I find is a great way to calm my mind and body and slow me down.
Oh, I love yoga. And there's so many different body movements right now that are very beneficial. Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, there's all different kinds of workouts, and I think they're very beneficial. Yeah.
So if we look around at the world, what's happening, because I'm also an astrologer, so I always look at what's going on with the planets, and then I look at the outer events, and I understand why certain things are happening at certain times. So are you able to do, I know you talked about the flooding, but do you look at the political situation, all the different, things going on currently in the spring, and can you see parallels and say, oh, that's why that's happening now?
Yeah, you can learn to kind of self-diagnose and have more awareness with your environment, inner and outer. So in terms of, we were talking about so much rain going on, that's excess yin and yang right now. And so there's been an overstimulation in the water element, and now it's rising to the wood element. And there's been overstimulation with the lot of different systems that we have of trying to regulate ourselves. And so we have different things that are rising up with anger, out of balance, because they're rearing themselves now because they can't support it anymore. You have too much rain, it washes away things. Too much yang energy, too much yang in excess, it's going to wash away things. So what's happening is it's a cleansing. It really is a cleansing. So the yin essence needs to rise up and support, and that's what's happening with females, but yin essence in general with everything. And so we have all this rain. It's helping us balance and wash away things that we don't need anymore.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because I'm thinking, the Boeing airplane crashes, the shooting in New Zealand, now the Mueller report's out. It's like all these things are kind of coming to a head.
Definitely, yeah.
So a lot of this sounds like it's based on a very Taoist philosophy with the yin and yang. So can you just do a quick description of the quality of energy of the yin and yang?
In terms of what it is?
Right.
Yeah. Yin, I think most people are aware of the yin and yang symbol, where half of it's of a sphere is light and half of it is dark. And what that means is it's in terms of awareness, it's learning how to be aware of the opposites and that they're really together in their function. You cannot separate them from another. We have the sun and we have the moon at the same time. They're coexisting. So even though we don't, on one part of the planet, we experience the sun at one time, another part of the planet experiences the moon at one time, but they're both coexisting within the universe at the same time. So it's important to honor the whole yin and yang. I think a lot of people separate out, they want all this energy, and they want energy. Well, now what's happening is you need essence too. You need to be aware of essence and the power of that. So, but use both of them. Either yet both. What would be a good way to describe that?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming back on our show, Teresa. We love having you back. And when we come up toward the summer solstice, we'll be sure to have you back for the summer foods. Yeah, excellent.
Would love to.
So we love having all of you with us. And so please connect with us on Facebook at Spirits Journey Radio. Please like our page while you're there. And also, we're going to be posting some more details about the recipes on the Facebook page, so you can get the details of the recipes there. You can study with us, find out more information about that at intuitiveschool.com. For right now, this has been Spirits Journey on TFR Live.
Happy spring, everyone.
All right, goodbye for now.